Mr. Shemitah linking with Israel and end-time prophecy?
Let's start.
Yeah, well, first of all, what people don't realize, one of the missing things in prophecy is that, or people's view of it, is that the Shemitah is crucial. What's the last period of prophecy? It's the tribulation period. How many years? 7 years. Shemitah. What's it based on? Daniel 77s, which is also linked to the Shemitah. All these things. So this is crucial. Now the thing is that every 7 years was a Shemitah, the Sabbath year. But every 7 Shemitahs, every 49 years, was the super Shemitah that we call the Jubilee. So this is a prophetic key. Now what was Jubilee? Jubilee was the time when if you lost everything in your life, you lost your home, lost your ancestral possession, lost your land. When the Jubilee comes, 7th Shemitah, you return to your land. You return to your ancestral possession. You return to your father's possession, whatever you lost. So now we know that the end-time prophecy is centered on Israel coming back to the land. Israel lost its ancestral possession in 70 AD, was driven out, lost its home, lost Jerusalem, lost all these things. But God said, Jesus said, he's not coming back until the Jewish people say, blessed is he from Israel, from Jerusalem. So it's got to happen. This is prophetic. So could the mystery of the 7th Shemitah, could that actually give the timing of Israel's restoration, end-time events, what has happened and what may come very soon? Well, the answer is yes. In fact, it gives the exact parameters of the greatest prophetic events of restoration in end-time prophecy. Now, we don't know when the Jubilee was, because we have no record in the time of Jesus. But we do have the record of when the Shemitah was. So the key is the Jubilee has to come the year after the Shemitah. The 7th Shemitah, 49th Shemitah, leads into the 50th year. So it's got to be the year after a Shemitah. So the first thing of this is that 1917 is the year of the Shemitah. World shaking, Shemitah is linked to world shaking and all these things. The period that is given, the parameter of this mystery means it ends in September 1917. So September 1917 to September 1918 is the key period of the parameters when something has to happen. Did anything happen? What happened in the exact parameters is that Britain is winning World War I. The Ottoman Turkish Empire falls. They have the land of Israel. Britain takes the land of Israel, says we are giving this back now to the Jewish people. They can return home. It's going to be a Jewish homeland. This is the first time in 2,000 years. When does it happen? November 1917, the exact time parameter of the Jubilee restoration. So here Israel is returning home. Here everyone is returning to their ancestral possession, the beginning of the restoration. Now, this is going to lead to the next. Now, if you take this and you go to the next 7th Shemitah, where does it take you? And I believe you have a roll in here, which is going to go from 1917 to the next prophetic thing. And then we'll take it to where we are.
Okay.
It's the first time in 2,000 years that the land is being restored to the Jewish people. The year following the Shemitah was September 1917 to September 1918. The Balfour Declaration takes place in November 1917. Thus, the land is restored to the Jewish people in the year following the Shemitah, corresponding to the Jubilee. It's a prophetic Jubilee, and according to the mystery, the Jewish people now would return home to the land they had lost, to their father's possession, to their ancestral homeland. Everyone shall return to their possession. The mystery of the Jubilee concerns the 7th Shemitah. So what happens if we move forward in time from the Shemitah of 1917, 49 years to come to the 7th Shemitah? What is the 7th Shemitah? It brings us to the Shemitah of September 1965 to September 1966. The year following the Shemitah would begin September 1966 and end September 1967. Did anything significant take place within that year and within those dates? Any event of restoration? The answer is yes. According to Bible prophecy, the Jewish people have to be restored not only to their homeland, but also to their ancient holy city of Jerusalem. In the midst of the Six-Day War, Israeli soldiers enter the Lion's Gate of the biblical city of Jerusalem. Through gunfire, they make their way to the holiest site in Judaism, the Western Wall. There they weep And after 2,000 years, the Jewish people are restored to their ancient capital, Jerusalem. It happens on June 7th, 1967. Within the parameters of the year ending in September 1967, the year following the 7th Shemitah, the Jubilee. The 7th Shemitah had ushered in the second restoration of the land. According to the mystery of the 7th Shemitah, the Jewish people had returned to what they lost 2,000 years before, Jerusalem. They had regained their long-lost possession and returned to their ancestral home. The two great restorations of the land each happened according to the mystery.
The Bible ordains that in the year of the Jubilee, the shofar, the ram's horn, is to be sounded. The first thing that happens after the soldiers reached the Temple Mount in 1967 is that the ram's horn is sounded from the Temple Mount, the sound of the Jubilee.
The man who sounds it is Rabbi Shlomo Goren. Rabbi Goren was born in the year 1917, the time of the other restoration. When he sounds the shofar, he is 50 years old, the number of the Jubilee.
The mystery of the Shemitah lies behind the two great end-time restorations of Israel's lands. Now, the pattern and cycle does not have to continue, but if it did, what would be the 7th Shemitah from the last restoration?
The 7th Shemitah begins September 2014, goes to September 2015. The year following the 7th Shemitah is that of September 2015 to September 2016. While the cycle doesn't have to continue and nothing significant has to take place, in the last two occurrences, it has meant war in the Middle East, war in the land of Israel, and a war resulting in a prophetic restoration.
Rabbi, are you saying?
Wow.
I can't even say it. That war could come from this.
If it follows the cycle, if it follows this, the last two times, what it has been, each one has meant a war in the Middle East. It was World War I, and then it was the Six-Day War, a war that focuses on or centers on the land of Israel at the end, and a war that results in a prophetic restoration. First the land, then Jerusalem, all according to the Jubilee of restoration. So where's the next one? Again, we're not saying God has to do anything. However, we should be aware. It begins September 2015 to September 2016. So it begins, when the Jubilee begins, it actually begins on a Hebrew holiday. It begins on Yom Kippur. The Jubilee can only begin on Yom Kippur. And that is, again, for someone who always says, be careful about dates, I'm going to give you the dates. September 23rd is Yom Kippur of the Jubilee, of this prophetic Jubilee. Now, go to Isaac Newton, the man we learned about with gravity and all those things. Isaac Newton was more a biblical scholar than he was a physicist. He wrote more on the Bible, more on prophecy, end-time prophecy. And what he did is he looked at the 77s of Daniel. And he had an interesting interpretation that there would be 7 sevens of years, or 49 years, from the time of the restoration of Jerusalem till this great end-time event. So, Jerusalem was restored in 1967. Now, people have taken this, and we're going to be dogmatic, just interesting. People have taken this, and prophetically, one of the measures in prophecy is that some of those prophetic things that are given are based on a 360-day year. Some of the things in Revelation are based on that, a 360, it's called a prophetic year. Well, they took June 7th, 1967, as the restoration of Jerusalem, took Isaac Newton's calculations, and made by 7 sevens, or 49 years of the prophetic 360-day years. Where does it take you? It takes you to September 2015, and it takes you to September 23rd, Yom Kippur, the beginning of the Jubilee.
Wow.
6 months from now.
Yeah, and just about 10 days
bigger.
from Elul 29, the Wipeout Day. I mean, all these things, again, doesn't have to happen.
And
but
it's Elul 29 also.
Elul 29 is 10 days before. That's the peak of the Shemitah.
Yeah.
10 days later comes September 23rd.
And is there a blood
Yom
moon
Kippur.
in there somewhere?
And then the next thing is Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles, during which you have the last blood moon the blood moon period. It all comes together.